Officer Tom Wells tapped the steering wheel of his patrol car as he drove through the quiet streets of Millfield. It was almost the end of his 12-hour shift, and his back ached from sitting too long. The small town rarely saw much trouble, which was both a blessing and a curse for someone whose job was to look for it. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the road as Tom checked his watch. Just 30 more minutes, then he could go home to his empty apartment and microwave dinner. His radio crackled with routine chatter, but nothing that required his attention. That's when he spotted the blue SUV ahead. Its left taillight was clearly broken, the red plastic hanging loose and the bulb exposed. With a sigh, Tom flipped on his lights. He wasn't in the mood for paperwork, but rules were rules. The SUV pulled over promptly, which was always a good sign. Tom radioed in the license plate and location, then stepped out of his patrol car. He approached cautiously, the way he'd been trained, hand resting near his belt. As he got closer, he could see a woman behind the wheel. She looked tired, with dark circles under her eyes. Her hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly that her knuckles were white. "License and registration, please," Tom said in the professional tone he'd perfected over 15 years on the force. The woman fumbled with her purse, her hands shaking slightly. "I'm sorry about the light," she said. Her voice trembled. "I'm Lucy Bennett. I know it needs fixing." Tom nodded as he took her documents. Everything seemed in order, but something felt off. The woman wouldn't meet his eyes, and she kept glancing at the rearview mirror. "Is everything all right, ma'am?" Tom asked, softer now. Before Lucy could answer, Tom heard a small sound from the back seat, a sniff, followed by what sounded like a muffled sob. He leaned slightly to get a better look through the window. What he saw made the blood drain from his face. In the back seat sat a small boy, maybe 6 years old. He had Lucy's eyes and fair hair, and he clutched a worn teddy bear to his chest like it was his lifeline. The child's face was streaked with dried tears, his eyes red and puffy. Beside him was a small suitcase, hastily packed with clothes spilling out. Several plastic bags were stuffed with what looked like toys, photo albums, and other personal belongings. This wasn't a family on vacation. This was a family on the run. "Please," Lucy whispered, noticing where Tom's eyes had gone. "I had nowhere else to go." Tom felt his throat tighten. The ticket book in his hand suddenly seemed so unimportant. "How long have you been driving?" he asked quietly. Lucy glanced at the car clock. "About 7 hours. We left in the middle of the night." Tom nodded, understanding more than she realized. He'd seen this situation before, and lived through a version of it himself as a child. "When was the last time you and your son had something to eat?" Lucy hesitated. "Yesterday morning. We left in a hurry." Tom made a decision. He handed back her license and registration. "That taillight needs fixing, but it can wait. There's a diner just down the road, Joe's. Good food, decent prices. I'd like you to follow me there." Lucy's eyes widened with surprise and a hint of suspicion. "You're not giving me a ticket?" "Not today," Tom replied. "Follow me to Joe's first. Both of you look like you could use a hot meal." The boy in the back seat looked up, curiosity briefly replacing fear on his small face. "Thank you," Lucy said, her voice barely audible. "But why would you help us? You don't even know us." Tom thought about his own childhood, about the night his mother had packed similar bags and taken him away from a home that had stopped being safe. "Sometimes people just need a break," he said simply. "And sometimes, they need someone to notice when they're struggling." As Tom walked back to his patrol car, he radioed dispatch that he'd be taking his break now. He watched in his rearview mirror as Lucy wiped tears from her eyes before starting her engine. What had begun as a routine traffic stop was turning into something much more important. Tom didn't know their full story yet, but he recognized the look of someone who had made the brave choice to leave something bad behind. And sometimes, that first step away needed a helping hand. Tom's police car led the way to Joe's Diner, a small building with a faded blue roof that sat just off the main road. The neon sign buzzed and flickered slightly in the late afternoon light. Tom parked and waited for Lucy to pull up beside him. "Best pancakes in the county," Tom said as he held the diner door open. Lucy guided her son inside with a gentle hand on his shoulder. The boy still clutched his teddy bear tightly. The bell above the door jingled as they entered. The smell of coffee and fried food filled the air. Only a few tables were occupied at this odd hour between lunch and dinner. "Well, if it isn't our favorite officer," called Betty, the waitress who had worked at Joe's for as long as anyone could remember. Her gray hair was pulled back in a neat bun, and her smile was warm. "Your usual booth is open." Tom nodded thanks and led Lucy and her son to a corner booth with a good view of both the entrance and the parking lot. Old habits from police training. "This is Lucy and..." Tom realized he didn't know the boy's name. "Oliver," Lucy supplied softly. "His name is Oliver." Betty handed them menus. "Special today is meatloaf, comes with 2 sides." "Bring us 3 specials," Tom said. "And chocolate milk for Oliver here, if that's okay?" Oliver's eyes lit up slightly at the mention of chocolate milk, though he still hadn't spoken a word. Lucy nodded her permission. Once Betty left to put in their order, an awkward silence fell over the table. Oliver began to color on the children's menu with the crayons Betty had provided, while Lucy kept glancing nervously toward the door. "You're safe here," Tom said quietly. "No one's looking for you in Millfield." Lucy's eyes filled with tears. "How did you know?" 15 years on the force. You see patterns." Tom kept his voice gentle. "Plus, I know what it looks like when someone's running from something bad." Lucy glanced at Oliver, who was focused on his coloring, before speaking in a near whisper. "His name is Robert. My husband. He wasn't always like this. But the drinking got worse, and then he lost his job, and..." She trailed off, but Tom could fill in the blanks. He'd responded to too many domestic calls not to understand. "Last night, he threw a plate at the wall. It just missed Oliver's head. I knew then we couldn't stay any longer." Lucy twisted her wedding ring. "We waited until he passed out. Grabbed what we could and left." Betty returned with their drinks. Oliver wrapped both hands around his chocolate milk as if it might disappear. "Do you have family who can help?" Tom asked after Betty left. Lucy shook her head. "My parents died years ago. My sister lives overseas. Robert made sure I lost touch with most of my friends." "Where were you planning to go?" "I don't know," Lucy admitted. "I just knew we had to leave. I have about £300 saved in a hidden account. I thought maybe we could find a cheap room somewhere and I could look for work." Her voice broke slightly. "I didn't think beyond getting away." Tom nodded. He understood that feeling too well. Their food arrived, steaming plates of home-cooked meatloaf with mashed potatoes and green beans. Oliver's eyes widened at the sight of the full plate. "It's okay, love. You can eat," Lucy encouraged. Oliver picked up his fork carefully and took a small bite. Then another, larger one. Soon he was eating with the hearty appetite of a child who hadn't had a proper meal in too long. Tom watched them both eat, noticing how Lucy kept taking small bites, as if making sure Oliver got enough first. It reminded him of his own mother, years ago. "My sister Maggie has a guest house," Tom said suddenly. "It's small, just 1 bedroom, but it's clean and warm. She rents it out during summer tourist season, but it's empty now." Lucy looked up, surprise and caution warring on her face. "We can't accept." "Just for a few days," Tom insisted. "Until you figure out next steps. Maggie won't charge you." "Why would you do this for strangers?" Lucy asked. Tom looked at Oliver, who had chocolate milk around his mouth and was looking more relaxed with a full stomach. "Because someone did it for my mom and me once, when we needed it," Tom said simply. Sometimes that's all it takes to change everything. For the first time since he'd pulled them over, Tom saw hope flicker in Lucy's tired eyes. "One night," she agreed. "And then we'll figure something out." Tom nodded, knowing that sometimes one night of safety was all someone needed to find their courage again. Maggie's guest house sat behind her main home, nestled among tall oak trees that cast cool shadows across the small yard. It was a simple building with white walls and blue shutters, looking like something from a picture book. Tom pulled up in his car with Lucy and Oliver following in their SUV. "It's not much," Tom said as he unlocked the door, "but it's clean and quiet." Oliver peered around his mother's legs as they stepped inside. The guest house had one bedroom, a tiny kitchen, a bathroom, and a living area with a sofa that could become a bed. The furniture was old but well cared for, with colorful throw pillows and soft blankets making it feel homey. "This is too much," Lucy whispered, taking in the space. After spending the night before driving in fear, the small cottage seemed like a palace. "Nonsense," said a cheerful voice from the doorway. Maggie Wells looked much like her brother, with the same kind eyes and strong jaw. She carried a basket filled with bread, jam, and other essentials. "Any friend of Tom's is welcome here." Tom had called ahead, explaining only that a woman and her son needed a place to stay for a few days. Maggie, who had raised 3 children on her own after losing her husband to cancer, understood without needing details. "The fridge is stocked with basics," Maggie continued, setting down her basket. "Bathroom has fresh towels. Call if you need anything at all." After Maggie left, Lucy sat on the sofa and finally allowed her shoulders to drop. The tension she had been carrying for who knows how long seemed to release slightly in the safety of this place. "You should rest," Tom suggested. "I'll come by tomorrow to check on you. My number is by the phone if you need anything." That night, for the first time in months, Lucy and Oliver slept without fear. True to his word, Tom returned the next morning. He found Oliver sitting on the front step of the guest house, still holding his teddy bear close. "Good morning," Tom said, sitting down beside the boy. "I'm Tom. We didn't really get to meet properly yesterday." Oliver looked up with sullen brown eyes. "I'm Oliver. I'm 6.5. "That's a good age," Tom nodded seriously. "And who's your friend?" He pointed to the teddy bear. "This is Brave," Oliver said quietly, holding up the worn brown bear. "Dad said I wasn't brave enough when I cried, but Mum said it was okay to be scared sometimes. So she got me Brave to help me be strong." Tom felt something twist in his chest. "Your mum sounds very wise." "Dad gets really angry sometimes," Oliver continued, his small voice matter-of-fact in the way only children can manage when discussing painful things. "He breaks things and shouts. Mum said we had to go away for a while." Tom nodded, choosing his words carefully. "You know what, Oliver? I think you're one of the bravest people I've ever met." Oliver looked up with wide eyes. "Really?" "Really," Tom confirmed. "Being brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means doing what's right even when you are scared. And you and your mum did something very brave by coming here." Oliver thought about this for a moment, then nodded as if it made perfect sense. "Brave thinks you're nice," he said, making the teddy bear nod its worn head. "Well, I think Brave is very smart," Tom replied with a smile. Lucy appeared in the doorway, looking better after a night of real sleep. "Oliver, I've made breakfast," she said, then noticed Tom. "Officer Wells, good morning." "Just Tom, please," he said, standing up. "I wanted to see how you both were settling in." Over the next few days, Tom helped Lucy begin to rebuild their life. He introduced her to Helen at the town library, who needed part-time help. He showed her where the affordable grocery store was, and which doctor in town would see patients without much paperwork. A week turned into 2. Oliver started attending the local primary school. Lucy began working at the library 3 days a week. The guest house became less of an emergency shelter and more of a temporary home. Tom found himself stopping by often, sometimes bringing dinner, other times just to chat or help Oliver with his reading. He told himself it was part of community policing, watching out for a family in need. But deep down, he knew it was becoming something more. One evening, as Oliver played with some second-hand toys Tom had brought, Lucy finally shared her biggest fear. "Robert has connections in this county," she said quietly. "What if he finds us?" Tom looked her straight in the eyes. "Then he'll have to go through me first." Spring arrived in Millfield, painting the town with fresh green leaves and colorful flowers.
3 months had passed since Tom had pulled over Lucy's SUV with the broken taillight.
The guest house that was meant to be temporary had become a real home for Lucy and Oliver.
Lucy now worked full-time at the library.
She had a way with the children during story hour, her gentle voice bringing books to life.
Helen, the head librarian, often said hiring Lucy was the best decision she'd made in years. Oliver had settled well into his new school.
His teacher, Mrs. Parker, told Lucy that he was bright and kind, though sometimes still quiet. The nightmares that had plagued him during their first weeks in Millfield were becoming less frequent.
Tom remained a steady presence in their lives.
He had started as their protector, then became their guide to Millfield, and now he was something more.
A friend. Perhaps even family.
On a sunny Saturday morning, Tom arrived at the guest house with his old bicycle tied to the roof of his car. "I thought Oliver might like to learn to ride," he explained as Lucy opened the door.
"I cleaned it up and fixed the brakes."
Oliver peeked out from behind his mother, eyes wide with excitement.
"Is that for me?"
"Just a loan," Tom said with a smile.
"Until you're ready for a bigger one." They spent the afternoon in the empty church parking lot across the street.
Tom held the back of the bicycle seat while Oliver pedaled, his little legs working hard, his face a mix of concentration and joy.
"Don't let go,"
Oliver called whenever he felt Tom's grip loosening. "I won't let you fall," Tom promised each time. "But soon you'll be doing this all by yourself." Lucy watched from a bench, a book forgotten in her lap. The sight of her son laughing, of Tom's patient encouragement, filled her heart in a way she hadn't felt in years. After an hour of practice, Oliver could wobble forward for several meters before Tom had to catch him. By the end of the afternoon, he was riding in small circles, still unsteady but undeniably riding on his own.
"Mom! Look at me!"
Oliver called, his face bright with pride.
"You're amazing, love!"
Lucy cheered, clapping her hands. Later, as the sun began to set, they sat on the porch steps of the guest house eating ice cream cones from the shop in town. Oliver had fallen asleep on the sofa inside, exhausted from his day of learning and triumph.
"Thank you," Lucy said softly. "Not just for the bicycle lessons. For everything."
Tom nodded, understanding all she wasn't saying.
"You've done the hard part. You got out. You built a new life here."
"Sometimes I still look over my shoulder," Lucy admitted. "When a car drives by too slowly, or when someone new comes into the library. I wonder if it's Robert, if he's found us." Tom was quiet for a moment.
"Have you thought about making it official? A restraining order, maybe?" Lucy stared at her ice cream.
"That would mean facing him in court.
Having to see him again."
She shook her head.
"I'm not ready for that." "You don't have to be ready now," Tom said gently.
"But when you are, I'll be right there with you." The spring evening was peaceful around them, the sound of crickets beginning their nightly chorus. In the distance, the church bells rang 6 times. "The town spring festival is next weekend," Tom mentioned, changing the subject.
"There's a parade, games for the kids, food stalls. Oliver might enjoy it."
"That sounds lovely," Lucy smiled.
"Though I don't know many people yet." "You know me," Tom said.
"And Maggie, and Helen from the library.
Mrs. Wilson from the bakery asks about you whenever I stop in for coffee.
Mr. Jenkins at the hardware store mentioned he could use weekend help if you're ever interested."
Lucy looked surprised. "Really?" Tom nodded. "Small towns talk, Lucy. People know you're starting over, and they respect that."
"Millfield takes care of its own." For the first time, Lucy truly felt the protective embrace of community. It wasn't just Tom watching out for them anymore, it was an entire town. "I never thought we'd find this," she whispered.
"A place where we could belong."
"Sometimes the worst detours lead to the best destinations," Tom said, surprising himself with the sentiment.
As darkness fell, fireflies began to blink in Maggie's garden. Oliver appeared at the door, sleepy-eyed and tousled.
"Can Tom stay for dinner?" he asked, rubbing his eyes. Lucy and Tom exchanged a look, something warm and hopeful passing between them.
"I'd like that," Tom said. "If your mum doesn't mind." Lucy smiled. "We'd both like that very much."
The autumn leaves crunched beneath Oliver's feet as he raced up the path to Maggie's guest house.
His backpack bounced against his small shoulders, full of artwork and papers from school. "Mum,
I got a gold star on my maths test," he called as he burst through the front door.
Lucy looked up from the table where she was sorting library books.
"That's wonderful, love.
I'm so proud of you."
A full year had passed since Officer Tom Wells had pulled over their SUV on that fateful day. So much had changed.
Lucy now managed the children's section of the Millfield Library.
Oliver had friends at school and had joined the junior football team. The broken taillight that had brought them to this town was long since fixed. The guest house had become their permanent home, with Maggie insisting they pay only what they could afford. Lucy had painted the walls a warm yellow and planted flowers in the window boxes. It wasn't large, but it was filled with something their old house had never had: peace.
"Is Tom coming for dinner?" Oliver asked, hanging his coat on the hook by the door.
Tom joining them for meals had become a regular occurrence, especially on Fridays.
"He is," Lucy smiled. "And he mentioned he has something special to show you." Oliver's eyes lit up. "What is it?" "That would ruin the surprise, wouldn't it?" Lucy tousled his hair. "Now go wash up before dinner."
As Lucy prepared the shepherd's pie, Tom's favorite, she found herself humming. The fear that had once been her constant companion had faded to a distant memory. Sometimes she still had moments of panic, usually when a car that looked like Robert's drove through town. But those moments were becoming rarer.
A knock at the door announced Tom's arrival.
He no longer wore his uniform when he visited. Today he was dressed in jeans and a blue jumper that matched his eyes. "Something smells amazing," he said as he stepped inside, bringing with him the crisp scent of autumn air.
Oliver ran to greet him. "Mum says you have a surprise."
"I sure do," Tom smiled, pulling a small wrapped package from behind his back.
"Happy birthday, Oliver." Oliver's eyes widened. "But my birthday isn't until tomorrow." "I know, but I thought you might like this tonight."
Tom handed him the package. Oliver tore open the wrapping to reveal a polished wooden box. Inside, nestled on blue velvet, was a replica police badge. Not a toy plastic one, but a beautifully crafted metal badge that caught the light as Oliver lifted it in awe. "It's like yours," he whispered. "Because you're brave," Tom said, kneeling down to Oliver's level.
"Just like Brave Bear." Oliver threw his arms around Tom's neck. "Thank you. Can I show Brave?"
"Of course." Tom watched as Oliver ran to get his teddy bear, the faithful companion that had seen him through so much. Lucy stood in the kitchen doorway, her heart full. "That was perfect, Tom.
He's going to treasure it."
"There's something for you too," Tom said, suddenly looking nervous. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Lucy's breath caught in her throat.
"It's not what you think," Tom said quickly.
"Or maybe it is, but not yet."
"I know it's too soon for that." He opened the box to reveal a simple silver key.
"This is to my house," he explained.
"I thought, well, the guest house is getting a bit small for you both.
My place has 3 bedrooms and a garden.
And it's closer to Oliver's school." Lucy stared at the key, then at Tom. "I'm not asking you to. I mean, I would never presume."
Tom stumbled over his words.
"I'm asking if you both would consider moving in."
"You could have your own space, your own bedroom. I could take the room downstairs. No pressure, no expectations."
"Tom," Lucy said softly, "are you sure about this?"
Tom looked at her with those honest blue eyes that had offered safety when she needed it most.
"I've never been more sure of anything.
This past year, watching you rebuild your life, seeing Oliver grow stronger every day, it's been the greatest privilege." From the living room came the sound of Oliver talking to Brave Bear about his new badge, about how he was going to be brave like Tom when he grew up. "I love you both," Tom said simply.
However you want that to look, whatever you need, I'm here.
Lucy took the key, her fingers brushing against Tom's.
We love you too.
Over dinner, they told Oliver about Tom's house, with its big backyard and the apple tree perfect for climbing.
Oliver's eyes grew wide with excitement. Will you be there all the time? He asked Tom. If that's okay with you, Tom replied. Oliver nodded seriously. Brave says that would be very okay.
As night fell over Millfield, the three of them sat on the porch swing, looking up at the stars. What had begun with a broken taillight had led them here, to a family built not from obligation, but from choice in love and healing. Sometimes the longest journeys begin with a simple traffic stop. And sometimes, home is found in the most unexpected detours.